somehow, I don't know what stained my tile, but it did, but it won't matter because I'm going to paint right over it. I have several different ideas of what I want to do with this, but I have many tiles, so I don't have to make that decision right and it be permanent. I'm going to do, the ones I want to do is like a crawfish boil, or even a seafood boil with shrimp, crabs, and crawfish, as well as I want to do maybe a big pelican flying, just because I think it looks really cool on the cup. I did another one of these pelican cups because I realized that I think the custom order I did was the wrong size cup. See, this is the one I did originally. So I'm thinking I might have done the wrong size cup. So I'm going to do both, and when I get to the gallery or the market to sell them, I'll just keep the other one. So I have a vending event this weekend, and then I have these to deliver, and I think I have 4 or 5 cups already to epoxy, so I have a good start to my inventory. So I thought I'd work on one of these pieces, since this is the tile that I just won my first ribbon award with. But again, I'm kind of stuck on what to do here. So out of comfort, I'm just going to do a crawfish boil, just because I've done it several times. And so I'm going to use Sunrise Yellow. And I just shake the bottle to get the ink out. I don't squeeze. And it just kind of comes out randomly like this. And I use a blue and a yellow for my background for my crawfish. I like using cobalt. This is, like I said, Sunrise Lit Yellow. And here's the blue. Now, of course, hopefully most of you know that yellow and blue makes green. So I start with these 2 colors and I let them be smudged together. I like that word, smudge. And I just kind of, pat it down. Now, another blue that works really good here, because this one is very cobalty, since it's called cobalt, I guess that fits. Another one that works is the sailboat blue. It's got a little bit more green in it. This one definitely has more, I'm just going to say not as much green. It's cooler, so it'd be more on the red spectrum than the blue spectrum. If you know anything about color theory, of course, our primaries are yellow, red, and blue, and every color slides along a spectrum to connect to the next color. So, of course, yellow and blue make green, yellow and red make orange, red and blue make purple, and so they slide along that spectrum, and you get all the different colors in between. So I named yellow, red, and blue are the primaries, and the ones that they make are the secondaries. And when you slide them, more in one direction or another, that gives you the tertiaries. And when you start to add either white or black into them, that gives you all the different levels of saturation and value. So I am not loving these colors together. I think that I normally use more of a sailboat blue, but I'm going to finish kind of smushing this on there and see what I think. I kind of go around the colors to leave some of the original. However, because it muddies the more you go over the dots, but because this is my first coat, and I'm probably going to use a few just to give me a background, I am going to go ahead and just get it pretty messy. And I'm grabbing quite a bit of alcohol here, because right now this is not, the goal is not for this to be the finished product for the background. This is just to get the white covered, and then I'll start to add layers of other colors on here. So you can see the yellow and blue makes kind of a neat color when you have more yellow, and then of course it's kind of a grade blue when you have less yellow. But it's a fun experiment to kind of see what effects you get. And, you know, the busier you make this background, you know, the more you might fight it a little bit. So I'm using Ranger inks. I will tell you, I have Pinata inks as well. And Pinata inks are great for certain things, but I don't like using them for backgrounds because you wrestle with them when you're using your colors on the foregrounds. They are very, very highly pigmented. So I'm going to add some more yellow. I think I'm going to try Dandelion now. Dandelion is a little less orange. And it's really good at, like, do you see how it really pushes away? So I like that effect that it does. And I don't think the Sunrise does it as much. And this is more of a yellow that's on the green spectrum. So I'm going to use some sailboat blue, which is a little bit lighter than the cobalt, and it's a little bit greener. Which makes sense. It's a watercolor, right? So you usually have kind of a blue-green in the water. And see, isn't it a pretty color? And look what it does with the yellow. Okay. Now, I am going to add some green. Now, I have different greens, all sorts of different greens. The bottle green is like, almost like that green that you see in like a Heineken beer bottle or certain, you know, old-timey bottles. So it's got some more blue in it, is what it is. I have never used this on a crawfish background, but it's kind of a fun color, so I wanted to kind of see what it was. Plus, I'm also running low on certain colors. So do you see how they're kind of blossoming now and doing some interesting things? So I'm actually going to take my spray bottle that I filled with 90% alcohol, and I'm just going to mist it. And I'm going to mist it pretty heavily, which is going to look like it's going to turn white, but it's going to fall back into each other and make a nice texture. So I'm just going to kind of let this dry. I could blow on it. It'll make the little cells spread in one direction or another. But do you see what's happening by me not touching it? How they're making these really cool patterny cells? It almost gives it like a mosaic effect. So I think this is really pretty. I'm actually really liking this. I think this will be a really great background for the crawfish that I have in mind. If that's just what I decide I still want to do. I really like the background here. Now, my impatience, I call myself an urgent artist. Now, not that that's a technical term, but that's what I call myself. And the reason I call myself that is because I'm a very fast painter. I've always kind of been rushing through the process in art, no matter what. Even back in college in 05 when I graduated, I was a printmaking major, and I really fought the process of printmaking. But this, I think that alcohol ink lends itself to kind of an urgency. So, but when you're working for layers or waiting on layers to dry, what's really good is to actually take this, set it aside, and start a second background. So oftentimes when I'm doing like my crawfish coasters or my crawfish trivets, I'll do several of them at the same time. And I'll get my backgrounds all done, and then I'll start putting my crawfish in. So the next step, now that this is kind of dried, is to start carving out where my crawfish are gonna go. And so I'm gonna fill my little dappen dish. These don't hold the most alcohol. I wish they held a little bit more so they dry out really fast because they're not as deep, and so the alcohol evaporates faster. So I think a shot glass would work good if it was heavier on the bottom so that it wouldn't fall over. I used the little shot glasses from the Dollar Tree, and I knocked those over all the time. So I bought these so that I wouldn't knock them over. And they do have lids when you're not working, and it will be there the next day if I decide. I did actually fill that all the way to the edge. I bought them in Amazon, a set of 4, and they're just called dappen dishes. So now I'm not using red, but I'm gonna use just straight alcohol and carve out where I'm gonna put the crawfish. So the way I do a crawfish is I make this kind of almost diamond shape, and then it's 2 almost rectangles here. Okay, and then you start getting where you peel the tail, it's these ridges. So when you're peeling crawfish, this is the part we eat, this is where the tail starts, and we actually pinch this way and pull it away from the body. And by pinching it, it cracks the shell enough that then you can reach underneath and start pulling these little layers off. And then I'm gonna make the tail. And I like a nice full tail. So it kind of bells out this way, like a fan. Just like this. Almost like a skirt or a fan. Okay, so that's the shape of my crawfish. And then I do the claws, and it is 3 joints. 1 on both sides, just like this. Now, is it important to get these shapes exactly right? No. It's blocking it out to get the ink off from the background, and then I put the color on. I like the claws to be long and narrow. I don't like them to be too rounded. And the claws are shaped where they have this little crossover. So they cross over like this. And then this piece connects right there. Again, this shape. Now, if I use too much alcohol, it's going to bleed and I'm going to lose my shape. But at this point, I still have a lot of grace in that process. Okay, so that's my basic shape for a crawfish. There's also 3 legs on each side and whiskers, and all those fine details get put in at the very end. So I'm now going to pick where I'm going to put another crawfish. I don't look for the areas that are really dark because I'm going to fight with those colors. So I'm actually going to put one, I think, laying this direction, and I'm going to make him where it's sideways. So this is going to be the head. This is going to arch this way. And I'm using kind of the side of the belly just because the alcohol is stored in the belly of the brush. I work very up and down for certain things and very sideways for others. So once I'm ready to clean up the area, I can then use the tip more. This brush, you know, alcohol is very hard on brushes. So I recommend not expensive brushes, of course, and not natural hair brushes, because natural hair, of course, is going to be way more susceptible to alcohol eating it up than an artificial hair brush. So these are some watercolor brushes that I bought called Creative Mark, and it was a set, I think, of 4 brushes, and I have used the heck out of this brush. I think I bought 2 sets, and I got them on clearance, and they were a good price, and they were probably one of my better quality brushes that I've bought. But like I said, I painted a ton of paintings with these, and it's starting to fray a little bit. It's starting not to come to as nice a point, but I do have a brand new one. So I actually, as they get more worn down, I find different purposes for the brushes. So it's not like they go in the garbage and are junk. They actually will become background brushes. They will become what I call mush brushes. So I do a lot of pouncing brushes. I call them that too. I kind of make up my own names for things. Okay, so now I'm putting the tail in, and I'm going to put the fan of the tail. Now, it's sideways, so I'm probably going to keep the tail more this direction. I'm not really sure if that's right or wrong, but that, in my world, it's right. So I think I do shrimp and crawfish's tails kind of similar. Not that they're the same, but I seem to do them that way. So might have to look up the logistics of shrimp and crawfish tails and see what the difference is. All right, claws. You are only going to see one. It's going to start here and come down this way. And then it's going to have a connect here. So this is going to go this way. Now, mind you, I'm just blocking these shapes out, right? I haven't even started putting the red in. So the red will go in a little bit. And why am I using blue, green, and yellow in the background if I'm going to put red? Well, you know, it's the complement of it, this, you know, in a spectrum of it. So again, here's the crawfish. Now, think about a claw this way. So this is going to be the, you see my hand? This, can't hold it. This is going to be the top part of the claw, and this will be the bottom. So it's almost like they have a thumb and a forefinger. Okay, so it's going to go this way. And I think, without looking, that this comes down here. And then this piece is this way. Now I'll see if that looks right. Yeah, it does. So it looks like it's this way. All right. And then the whiskers will go this way. And yeah, so we have 2 crawfish here. I think I'm going to work on these for a little bit. And then we'll do, this is my middle red, but I like starting with the dark red. So we're going to grab the dark red. And we're going to, I like using brush for this. And I will tell you, it is really hard for me to find a good red that then I can keep and you keep doing this with. So do you see how quick I'm going? Am I making these shapes perfect? No. Why am I then scribbling all this on? I'm scribbling all this on to get the color there so that I can paint it where I want it. Okay. Okay. So there's one. Now, am I going to do a video of this entire painting? No, but I will post finished pictures of it in a little while. So my crawfish are 3 different colors that I use to make them. I use a darker red, which this is supposed to be my darker red. However, it's not as dark as I thought it would be. So I'm kind of looking like a burgundy or a wine kind of color. And I then move it with the alcohol to get the shapes. The most important part about this first layer is to kind of spread it out, use a fair amount of alcohol, and then let it kind of make, I want it to make a line around the edge, like it almost gathers and creates a wall. It's really not about the color being in the centers. So you'll see me kind of pull away a lot of the color here. And even in the head, and push that alcohol to the sides. So now I'm gonna make these. Now when I've taught crawfish to people locally to draw, oftentimes what I have happening right here is they wanna make these lines by almost blending this as one unit. You wanna make sure when you're brushing this, that you're leaving space. Now, what I'm wrestling with here is this blue that's wanting to make a purple. It really doesn't matter that much, so I'm kind of pulling it off. What's cool about alcohol ink, it has the effect of watercolor. However, you can pick up pigment and put it somewhere else. So what's gonna happen is I'm gonna touch the tail here. Now watch what happens. I pulled that. Now I can come back in here and paint it. Isn't that cool? So I'm gonna do the same thing here. And I'm just kind of wiggling the shape. Now I don't like these little frayed areas. That's my brush, the oldness of my brush. So I'm going to brush that away. And what happens when I get those sometimes is the area ends up getting bigger than maybe what I started with. And I'm okay with that. You know, maybe the claw gets thicker or the tail gets longer. But again, art is not, this is not photorealism. This is my interpretation of the representation of what a crawfish looks like. So there is no right or wrong answers on how to do this. Now don't get me wrong, I mean, people have opinions, but my opinion in my artwork is the most important. Unless it didn't sell, then my opinion would change. So, all right, so you kind of see how I've moved that. This is like before. This is that next layer. Now, this is what I was saying about this tail. So I don't want to touch where the darker areas are, because then I'm going to end up losing that ridging look. So I want that to stay. So I'm going to keep touching the lighter areas. And what happens is then it starts to look more three-dimensional because you have your lights, your middles, and your darks. All right. So now we're going to add the next color, which this is actually corally color, and that's the wrong one. I don't even know how I got this one here. So let's see what this one does. Okay, so this is a good one. This is definitely more orange. So I'm going to go right back in. If you notice, I'm staying in my border, not breaking the wall, that the alcohols push that ink into the walls, and I'm just reinforcing those walls. Again, touching here, trying not to break that wall that built, and same thing here. Okay. So that's my next step. This is the second coat. I'm mixing this in with the first coat of that kind of darker color. I am using just the tip now, and I call this tickling the canvas because I am trying to not flood the area. And you know, alcohol ink is a very push-pull relationship. You have to really master. I'm gonna move this down. Can you guys see my, put it over here. Can you see my, where my brush is? I'm touching it in, but then I'm wiping it on the edge. I tap it down like this, and I'm releasing some of the alcohol into the puppy pad so that I don't flood my artwork and lose my shapes. And I'm kind of just tickling the piece. Another place this wall is very important is right here. So I don't want to break that, and I don't want to break this one. Here's that wall over here. So I need this to be lighter. So now I'm pushing down a little bit harder, and I'm making that wall a little thicker. And I need this to be lighter here. Okay. Now we're gonna redo these again. 1, 2. This is kind of temperamental. You have too much alcohol on your brush, and it is going to bleed everywhere. So I'm touching very slightly. And if I remember correctly, I haven't reloaded my brush for quite a while. Because I'm working on the same color, I don't have to clean it off. And I'm picking all that ink up from previous areas and moving it around. So oftentimes what I've seen people do is they're constantly wiping the color off that they've picked up. And look what happens when I touch in here now. I'm getting more white, I'm getting more brush strokes. So I'm gonna touch some alcohol and come back in here. Now, when I do the third layer of color, see how much alcohol is there and how it's like really pushing and doing a weird thing. It's because I wiped most of the pigment that I've been picking up throughout this whole crawfish off my brush, and so now I'm getting more white. I'm okay with this right now just because I'm getting ready to add my third color. So I'm just kind of still reinforcing the shape walls. I think that works for a word, huh? Shape walls. All right. I want this wall to move over a little bit. Okay. And this shape is not, this needs to be reinforced. So the tails always start thicker at the top near, I think this is called the carapace, near the carapace. And then as we get down to the tail, it's going to get narrower. You don't really see that as much when it's sideways because you're looking at it from the side, but it does do it a little bit. And somebody asked me how many of these they should have on their crawfish. Proportionally to me, this part needs to be, it's almost like 1, 2, 3. It's like the same distance, but this is a little bit longer. But again, it's my interpretation. So does that mean mine is right? No. I like the red that I just used. It's kind of orangey. So now I'm going to put the legs in. So I do this, this, and then a little one here. This and this, and then another one, and that. And I want to say there's actually 4, not 3, but I'm not sure. I'll look in a second. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. All right, so some of these aren't quite touching. I, of course, do that with my brush. I'm going to grab my smaller brush from this collection, which it disappeared, it looks like. Oh, that's the one hit the floor. Okay, so this one is a round number 2. And this, you have a little bit more control on how much alcohol you're putting onto your thing when you use a smaller brush. But again, and so some people start with smaller brushes when they first start, just because that gives them a little bit more control, or the sense of control. I, again, am an urgent painter, so I take my time. Last color that's going to go into this, yes, I'm looking at this and I feel like there's a 4th leg, so yes, I'm going to put a 4th leg. And I'm going to actually let this one cross a little bit. It's got a mind of its own. Yeah, that feels better. So I think it is 4. Okay. Now, I grab orange. And what I do with orange is I actually pounce with it, like this. And the reason I do this is the shells kind of have a texture to them. So this is where I bring my texture in. These I kind of just brush. This I color. Same here. I'm not touching the whole thing here. And I do sometimes add a little bit of orange to the legs, but not everyone. So now that I've done that, again, touch the alcohol, and just like I applied it with pouncing, I'm gonna attach the alcohol with pouncing as well. Now, you'll see that I'm picking up more than I'm keeping, but if you see, I'm moving back and forth over the same spot that I'm at until I've picked up pigment from one area and move it back to the other area. And do you see how it kind of gives that texture? Now, here I'm doing more lines and pouncing. Okay, same thing here, lines and pouncing. I think I'm out of alcohol. I'm not quite getting the effect I want, so I'm gonna reload my brush and let it have a little bit more texture. Now, if it blossoms more than I want it to, then I just go back in and add some more color. I pushed my wall beyond where it was because I didn't like the shape, and now I have some blue coming in. Do you see how it's making almost a black line though? I like that. So I am okay with that. All right, so I almost have this crawfish done. You can see that this is a little time consuming. This is actually one of the most popular paintings I do, and yet it's probably one of the more time consuming paintings I do. And so I get a little bit tired of painting crawfish in the fact that they take a little bit longer to do than I want them to, but that's okay. I'm gonna go ahead and touch this part. Again, I'm moving down further than maybe you think to do it, but I want to make sure that I have that wall shape, that darker line. And I don't want to put it in with a black line, right? I want it to be that ink gathering in a wall. Now I'm going to touch this. This I'm going to pull down from this direction. Okay. Now I need to add some more back in there. You see that? Okay, so this is a good speckle. This is too speckled for the carapace, I think, for me. So I'm going to straighten it out a little bit. And I do like this to be lighter on this outside rim, right in here, because I feel claws do. And I am pretty much done with that crawfish. I haven't worked this one, but I just kind of wanted to show you a finished one. And then I'll finish the whole project and take a picture and post it in the comments. But what I want to show you now is I then take, so I have my Posca pens, and this is a 24, I guess, a 24. And then I also have my bigger one, which is over here. Okay, so here's the size, 1MR and 3M. So this one I use for the eyes, just like this. And this one I use for the, just like that, okay? Then I'm gonna let that dry, and then I will come in here and dot the yellow, the white, but it's too wet right now, so it's just gonna turn to gray. So I just wanted to show you this is a finished crawfish for me. Thank you.